To unleash your full potential in Illuvium, you need to know this. I'm talking about the language of Illuvium, the terminology. Because when you're talking to people, when you're watching videos, guides, when you're playing the game, there is a certain language that's been spoken in Illuvium and you need to know all the words in it, otherwise you're just missing half of the story. So let's speedrun through some of the most important terms in Illuvium. We are gonna be using this infographic that I've stolen from illuvialmaster.com. Check them out, they have some great tools for Illuvium. And I've added some stuff, updated a little bit, tweaked a little bit, and also removed some very obvious things. Affinities. Those are the elements that the Illuvials have that determine the bonuses to stats based on thresholds. For example, fire, earth, water, nature, and air. In this example picture, you can see the affinities on the left, and here Bloom is activated with the triple threshold right here. Next up, we got Airborne. It's a plane change, so combat units that are airborne can only be affected by abilities that are also in the air. For example, projectiles and beams. Next up, the Augments. Augments are basically the items that you can put on your Illuvials. It's the cards you play in the auto battler for mastery points alongside your Illuvials to power them. So they cost mastery points and they empower your Illuvials and they have a certain effect to them, and you can also choose 2 extra bonus stats to tweak your Illuvials even more. You can see them down here. Those are all the augments that I could play right now. And also the Illuvials right here have the augments equipped on them, maximum 2. Next up we got Blind. Blind is a negative state that causes all attacks to miss. Energy gain still occurs. Next up we got Burn. Burn is a condition that deals 2% of missing health as energy damage per second. It lasts 8 seconds and can be stacked up to 5 times. At full stacks, the combat unit ignites, dealing pure damage in an area. Charm focuses a combat unit to move towards the charmer. Classes is the counterpart to affinities, and those are the speciality of the Illuvial. For example, the job that they have. A bulwark unit is going to be the tank. A Scion unit is going to be the mage. An assassin is going to be an assassin. A fighter is going to be a fighter. And last up, we got an empath. He's going to be the support. You can see them over here for your own team and over here for the enemy team. Clumsy stops a combat unit from being able to dodge. So this is a very good counter for air teams. Composite affinities or classes are a combination of 2 classes or 2 affinities. For example, Granite is Earth plus Earth. Slayer is Fighter plus Rogue. There are 4 conditions: Poison, Frost, Burn, and Wound. The crit amplifier, crit amp, or Savagery is the multiplier for critical damage. By default, it's 150%. Precision is crit chance. It's the chance for an attack or ability to crit. Usually only attacks can crit, but with Synergies and Augments, you can give your Illuvials the ability that their Omega will crit. Dodge or dodge chance, this is the chance for a character to avoid an incoming attack. Energy cost is the energy required for an Illuvial to cast its Omega. Energy attack damage is the multiplier for energy damage auto attacks or also for Omega abilities if they have it in the description. Energy efficiency acts as the multiplier when receiving energy. By default, it's 100%. Next up, we got energy regen. This is the rate at which energy is restored. By the way, energy in most other games is called mana, the blue bar under the health bar. Energy resist is a percentage energy damage reduction. There is also a flat energy damage reduction. We'll come to that later. Exploit weakness. An attack or Omega with exploit weakness has the damage it deals increased by the percent missing health of the recipient. So basically, if your attack would do 100 damage, but your target is on 50% health and you have exploit weakness, your damage is increased by 50%, which will then deal 150 damage. Next up, we got Flee, in other games also known as Fear. Flee forces a combat unit to move away from the combat unit that applied the flee. Next up, we got Focus. A unit's attacks are targeted at their focus. Frost is a condition that reduces attack speed by 3% per stack. It lasts 10 seconds and can stack up to 9 times. Once you have the maximum amount of stacks, the target will be frozen for a 2-second duration and the stacks will be removed. So then you can stack it up once again. Here we got Grid. It reduces each instance of physical damage received by 1 per grid. So this is the flat physical damage reduction. Next up we got Hardened. This is the counter to crit damage. Determines the amount of damage mitigated when receiving a critical hit. Health Regen is the rate at which health is restored. Healing efficiency acts as a multiplier when receiving healing. By default, it is 100%. Hyper and Hyperactive. It's a state of increased power an Illuvial can have when the hyper bar reaches 100. Combat units gain hyper when their affinity counters an affinity that their opponents have. So let me just give you a little example of that. Right here we can see Mr. Monkey over here. He got his hyper meter full. So you can see this on the little yellow bar over here. This is the hypermeter. Over here we can see Malura is not even at half, or this cinch right here is just barely moving up. Also an example, those units don't have any hyper loaded yet because the enemy affinities counter them. Because those, for example, are nature, and right here we have a lot of earth and fire which counters the nature. It is applied in a 50 hex radius, and the more units they counter in this radius, the faster they gain hyper, and the more they are countered, the less fast they gain it. Each class has a special bonus that gets applied once they reach hyper. Composite classes gain half of their bonuses of the primary classes. For example, Arcanite, which is Fighter and Scion, gains half of the Fighter bonus and half of the Scion bonus. Indomitable means the health bar cannot go below 1 HP for the duration of the buff. Lethargic is a negative state that prevents a unit from gaining energy. Mastery points you probably know by now. This is the gold, the money, whatever you want to call it. The stuff that you buy your Illuvials, your Augments with, and that is your economy in the game. Omega and Omega Power. Omega is called the special move an Illuvial does when their energy bar fills up. In other games it's called Ultimate or Ability, and the Omega Power increases the damage of this Omega. Funny side note to the Omega, there are Illuvials that have no Omega ability, but rather a passive ability. Kieran's Monkey is one of those. Physical attack damage is the multiplier for attack damage auto attacks or Omega abilities that have it in them. You can check out the Omega abilities while hovering over an infographic of an Illuvial. There you can see how the damage of an Omega is composed. Physical resist is the percentage attack damage reduction. Poison is a condition that deals 1% of maximum health as pure damage per second. It lasts 5 seconds and can stack up to 5 times. At full stacks, it removes the ability to heal for 3 seconds. Resolve reduces each instance of energy damage received by 1 per resolve. For example, if you're getting 10 damage and you have 5 resolve, you only get 5 damage. Silence prevents Omega from being cast, or if the Omega is being cast, it cancels it. The size determines how many hex units an Illuvial occupies, so how much space does the Illuvial take on the battle board. Synergies are all classes and affinities. A takedown is a kill or an assist. Taunt forces a combat unit to focus on the taunter. Teammates are combat units on the same side, excluding self. Allies are combat units on the same side, including self. Tenacity determines the duration of any debuff placed on an Illuvial. Coming to Thorns, on receipt of damage from an attack deal, the Thorns amount in pure damage to the attacker. So 50 Thorns, you get attacked, and then you reflect 50 damage back to the attacker if you get damage. Ticks are a time counter. 10 ticks are 1 second, so 2 HP regen means 2 hit points distributed over 10 ticks, or 2 HP per second. Underground, like Airborne, is a plane change. So combat units that are underground can only be affected by abilities that can target the ground. Unrelenting is a positive state effect that this allows a combat unit to have any detrimental effect attached to them for the duration. However, unlike Immune, any current attachable effect does not have its attachable effect status changed. So what does that mean? If an Illuvial gets Unrelenting, there cannot be any more status effects attached to it, but status effects that are already on it won't go away. Immune, on the other hand, will remove all the status effects and will also make it immune to all the future status effects while Immune is lasting. Vanquish is a kill. Willpower determines the duration of any debuff placed on an enemy Illuvial. So the more willpower you have, the more your debuff will last on this enemy Illuvial. The last status condition we have is Wound. It is a condition that deals 1.25% of the physical damage of the applying attack or Omega as physical damage per second. It lasts for 8 seconds and can stack up to 5 times. Once it's fully stacked, it reduces the crit amp. And last up we have the definitions of the area. So a small area is a radius between 1 and 15 hexes. A medium area is an area between 16 and 25 hexes. Large area is between 26 and 35 hexes, and massive area is greater than 36 hexes. And there you have it. Now you know some of the most important language terms in Illuvium. Now you're ready to check out this video. Because in this video, if you know the language, you will be able to take so much more out of it. Thank you so much for watching. Hit the subscribe button. I see you in the next one. Peace out.